It happens during this time of year.
What is it?
Don't let me sneeze. Don't let me sneeze.
I'm not going to let you sneeze.
Seasonal sneezing?
Yes.
Sneezing.
Oh, that's a good word. I think it's coming, but
Hey, welcome
to this podcast, Wholehearted Living.
Wow. Wholehearted
I'm gonna
Living.
sneeze.
That's what we call it. It's okay.
This is Valerie.
This is Bennie. So we're in Wholehearted Living, and we have just completed a book review and a discussion about the book. And now Valerie is going to give us a subject. I introduced it a hair last week because we did talk about it a little bit, but I don't know exactly where she's going to go with it.
I don't even know either, because we really didn't think this through when the book was over. We're like, okay, where are we going to go after this? And are we going to jump back on to surprise, each other
Surprise
with a
each other?
topic?
Yeah.
Or are we going to go with like we can do a series of something? But something came to mind to me, and because I had a conversation with somebody one day, and I just thought, let's chat about this real quick. But yeah,
Before
so
we do that,
right in,
how was your
wanna...
week? No, what was your week like?
I went on a field trip today to the West Water Basin, which is in El Segundo. And it's the water filtration system for recycled water. It's not water that we drink. It's just water for I don't know if you've ever been there. This is like the third time I've been there with a student for a field trip. And so we did that. And then after we did that, we went over to
Wait. What is it? You don't drink it, but they recycle it?
So it's mostly used for like maybe, what do we use it for? Like it's not for human consumption, but it's like for, oh my gosh, you would think I would, like they take it to the park so that you would have fresher water there. You have.
You mean like for the ponds, for the man-made ponds and things like that?
Yes.
Okay.
For like you will.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's good. It's just to kind of recycle the water. Anyway, so the whole field trip was about showing how they recycle it and how they clean it.
It's really good to know how much the teachers pay attention to everything that's been said.
I know, right? Well, the
filters.
reason, and it is very interesting, and it's actually such a great process. It starts at the Hyperion plant, and then it moves on over to the Hyperion plants in El Segundo as well. You've probably seen it multiple times if you ride your bike or skateboard down there in El Segundo. It's kind of like by Dockwaller Beach. You can't miss it. The big plant, yeah. And so the water starts there, and then they send it over to this West Water Basin, and then they filter it more. And so it's a really, really good educational thing for the students because they learn how this process happens, and then they do like a little activity and try to filter their own water. And so it's very cool. All that said, the student I went with did not want to participate in this at all. Very scared of the noise, very scared. You have to wear a helmet as you walk the premises. Didn't want to wear the what do you call it? Like the
helmet.
Safety helmet. Yeah.
The hard hat.
Hard hat. Thank you. And then, that was hard because I'm like, but you will like this friend. You will like this friend. I'm like I don't want to say his name. And no, I don't want to go up there. No, I don't want to see that. No, I don't want to. Oh, it's too loud. And so, he has autism, so I get it. So we just stood back. Then we eat. Then we go to the Manhattan Beach, the aquarium. And same thing there. He doesn't want to see the fish. I mean, it's a very small little thing there, but they have some pretty cool looking fish behind, obviously, glass. And he didn't even want to get close to the glass. When the fish came up close, he would jump back like it was going to come out.
Eat him?
And yeah. And so that was hard too. He kept saying, I want to go outside. And it was freezing outside, very, very windy. And I was just like, no, we're staying in, but we can stand back here. So it was just exhausting because it's an exhausting day in and of itself because it's not just your typical day. And then he wasn't really wanting to have it. He wasn't about it at all. He did smell the food in Manhattan Beach and said, is there a restaurant nearby? Can we go to the restaurant?
That's funny.
Yeah. But anyway, anyway, hi, Iggy.
Hello. Hi.
Okay. Hi, Iggy. Iggy does our sound, so we're grateful for you taking time out to do this with us. So that's great. Patty's here too. She's just going to scream and laugh in the background.
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
That's my wife.
Eat her chicken.
And eat her chicken. I don't know why that valued
A woo?
a woo.
A woo.
But okay. Okay. So for me, I am gonna say I don't know why I'm going into that high pitched sound. I always I
Maybe
never.
you're doing what I'm doing. Maybe because I'm adopting that little bit of a squeak in my voice that Mom has now.
Mom has a squeak in her
Oh my
voice?
gosh, we've talked about this several times, Benny.
Oh, we have.
She has a squeak sometimes,
A
and I
squeak?
said, "Oh, I think I'm getting that squeak because I feel like I have that from time to time." But now you're getting the squeak. Well, you're coming of age, so
Coming of age. How old am I?
He's in puberty.
you're 4 years younger than I am.
That doesn't help me.
Well, I'm 59, so you're 55.
I'm 55. Am I? I'm 54, you
Wait.
liar.
Wait, what?
Oh, because I'm not, because my birthday hasn't happened yet. Your birthday,
You're in September, so yeah.
so my birthday hasn't, so I'll be 55. That's just stupid.
It's stupid that I'm 59.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Look at you. Just kidding. I know. She does look young.
Except when the kids play with my hands at school, some of the students, they're like, Miss Valerie, why does your skin do this?
That's so funny. I will say I see certain things that I look and I go, oh my gosh, is that really
I
me?
know.
Well, this is a depressing podcast.
Well, this kind of goes into the podcast of what I want to talk about. My
Oh,
topic.
it does actually. What is the
Yeah.
name of our topic?
Topic?
What is the name of our podcast? Did we ever say that?
Wholehearted Living.
Oh, that's right. Wholehearted Living. I don't think you said that. Or did you? Oh, yes, you did. But you were going to sneeze. And so I wasn't paying attention.
I was really thinking I was going to do a sneeze fest, so I was kind of concerned.
Yeah.
No,
That-
but it does go into our podcast topic
for today.
for today about, I just kind of wanted to briefly talk about body shaming and not our own body shaming.
Right.
Body shaming other people.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring it up is because there was somebody that was talking about their body and they have a disease, so to speak. I don't want to say too much, but there's something going on in their system that they fluctuate in weight without.
I think it's safe to say, can I say this? It's safe to say people who have thyroid issues
Yes.
often have issues with their weight.
whether it's they can't put weight on or they gain weight or
Right.
whatever. And this particular person puts weight on and then it goes off, puts weight on to nothing else that she's ever changed in her life. Like she can eat the same way the whole time and then she'll all of a sudden be down 15 pounds and then like a year later she's up 30. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, but the sad part is that she was shamed for her body because she is a coach at our gym and somebody said, "Oh, you looked much better like a year ago. What happened? And how could you be a coach with, not even knowing like her backstory
Right.
and not knowing that she's dealing with something on a daily basis
Right.
and that's out of her control as much as she tries to control it." And so it just got me to thinking because I think a lot of times, and I am so guilty of this. And again, Benny and I talked about this before we started this podcast. We don't want it to go into a diet type of podcast at all. This is more about talking about somebody when we have no idea what's going on in their life. And
Yeah.
so, and I'm guilty of it. I definitely think sometimes I've looked at somebody and said, well, I wonder what they're eating because they clearly aren't, there's not a lot of proof of what's going on as much as they work out. You know what I mean? And it's like, as soon as I think that thought, I'm like, okay, I don't know them. I don't know what's going on in their life, and it's a shame. It's a sad thing because I see a lot of people judging people without knowing anything about them.
Right. Well, and so so by the way, if you don't know, we typically do a surprise topic, and this was a semi-surprise topic because she warned me about it. Well, we were discussing what we were going to talk about.
Right.
I will. Can I take it farther than even just looks?
Absolutely.
I think of homeless people. I think of the inner city, and generally when you think about living in the inner city and you think about what kinds of activities take place there and why do they take place there, and then there's an immediate judgment. I don't know if this is true for you, but there's a judgment that takes place. We start thinking, oh, well, then they must have they must not have this, and they must do this, and they must be this way, and we
course.
start immediately making judgments. I
Right.
totally agree with you about the looks thing. The truth of the matter is often if you see somebody who's heavy, you're thinking, well, eat better. Or,
Yeah,
or work
exactly.
out
Right.
or do whatever.
Sure.
And I think some people who are listening who might be heavy are saying, yes, I wish that was me. I agree. I need to work out more, or I need to eat better.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not about, it may, I guess you can take it how you want to. I think the bigger issue is how do we perceive people and how do we judge them? And then and maybe what's probably more important is how do you treat that person? Right? Based on because if you see somebody who is, I guess we're talking about if somebody who's heavier than the ideal, you might immediately start assuming things about their character, about their personality, about who they are.
Well, don't you feel like if we're going to the looks part of it, don't you feel like people gravitate to people that look good? And it's just, and I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just saying I'm not saying it's right because it is actually wrong. But I think that just in our society, I
even want to challenge your statement. You said, don't we gravitate toward people who look good? Mm-hmm. And the assumption is that good is always thin and small or whatever.
Or pretty or and exactly. And that's what I'm saying is you have somebody who maybe doesn't look quite as, aesthetically pleasing to you per se, because it could be aesthetically pleasing to somebody else. But there is just this perception of, are you, why aren't you drawn to strike up a conversation with that person because they're not
right. Ideal. Yeah. I think, first of all, let me backtrack. Let me talk about myself a little bit and say, I don't know if I'm drawn to people who look the ideal. As a matter of fact, I would say in my case, I'm a little threatened by people who are the ideal. When they are the ideal, I kind of I'm a little afraid. I'm not going to meet up. I don't measure up to this person. I'm never going to be as good as them or whatever it is. So I'm not sure that that the ideal is something that I look for, but I do look for the medium ideal. if that makes sense. And the medium.
You're the medium.
Oh no, my bride is beautiful. I'm talking about in general when I'm seeing the population. She was out of my league. I'm looking at the population. In general, and I would say it's not a matter of being attracted to them, but if maybe it is attraction. I don't know what the right word would be. What I would say is that if like this coach, I am more inclined to look, even if I'm threatened by the person, I'm more inclined to say, what is that person doing? Because clearly it's working. So if a coach is not looking like the way I want to look, then why in the world would I follow that person? It doesn't make it wouldn't make much sense.
Right.
And then on the other hand, like you said, not understanding that there could be an actual reason for this.
Sure.
It could be it could be something significant going on in their lives that has nothing to do with whether or not they're working out. I say this all the time, but I work out a lot. We just talked about this in the last podcast, I think. But I work out a lot. I mean, I'm pretty much one of those guys that works out 7 days a week. Now I don't do the 3-hour workouts. I usually work out. So I go for a walk in the morning, 40 minutes, and then I walk in the afternoon for about 15 minutes, and then I usually work out for 45 minutes or something like that. And I don't mean I work out the entire 45 minutes, but that's about 45 minutes to an hour. And the doors being rung. That's incredible. And so but what happens with me is that I feel very good, but I'm far from the ideal. I'm far from my own ideal, and I'm definitely far from the ideal of, I think what other people would say, oh, I really want to be like him.
Yeah.
You're way more the ideal. Like you eat really, really well. You. Yeah. You're thin, but strong.
Well, I think that, and I agree with you, because I think you and I talked about this. It wasn't on the podcast. It was before the podcast. Earlier when I first got here, we were talking about it. But I think, like I said about Peter, I think that if you look at Peter, you would say, I don't think a lot of people would look at Peter and think, oh, he works out. Or maybe they do because he's broad or whatever. But he's not like the ripped guy, you know, but if you touched him, he's very hard and solid.
That's what she said. Okay. That's something I'm going to do next Easter. I'm going to touch him.
Okay. So, I guess interpretation. No, but I'm just saying, like,
If you touched him, he's hard. Oh my gosh. This is supposed to be a family podcast.
I said, and solid.
Oh, that makes it a lot better. Golly, you just dispelled everything
I meant
negative.
his shoulders and his shoulders and back. Like, if you touch him, he's a very solid and hard guy. He's not soft and mushy.
Change the word, for God's sake. Even Nikki can't control himself. None of us can control ourselves.
Okay, so anyway, let me just keep going with that. But I'm just saying, like, you can't judge a book by the cover. And here's my whole thought and the whole process and why I even thought this should be a topic of conversation. Because I think that people way back in the day when I was like even probably thinner than I am now, and even mom would say like she was worried about me. I'm like, what are you talking about? I was what you would call like a skinny fat. And so somebody might look at me and go, oh, she's so thin. What does she do to, you know? And it's like, that was the most unhealthy time in my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So again, I'm not trying to make this podcast about a diet and lifestyle, but if people looked at me and said, oh, I'm overweight, I'm chubby, I want to look like her, that I wasn't the ideal.
Right.
I was not the ideal.
No, one of my favorite people on Instagram, I showed you her a couple weeks ago, I think, is I think her name is Danielle.
She's a dietitian.
Danielle,
or something, right?
the dietitian.
Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, she looks great. She looks wonderfully healthy, but she's not the that image that you have of other people. She's clearly like strong.
Mm-hmm.
She's clearly, I don't want to use this word because we've already gone this direction, but she's like, you can tell she's firm, so to speak.
Yeah.
She just looks healthy.
Yeah.
Fit. That's a great word.
Yeah.
She's fit, but she's not ripped. You know, she's not ripped. She's not really super strong. She's not all those things. But you kind of go, oh, that is like a prototype of what you want. But here's the problem. What if she has a thyroid issue and she's eating great, she's working out, but she's 20 pounds heavier? Do we still say the same thing?
Right.
And that's the conversation that we're having right now, is that I think the real conversation that we're having is, when we look at people, do we immediately place them into a category and then dismiss them or accept them or whatever?
And that's my point, is dismissing or accepting. And I think it's a very sad situation, because I think it happens a lot for women more, because I think women have to uphold a certain image or a certain look or whatever. And sadly, well, I mean, I guess it could be like you said, like men are afraid to like approach that, but more often that will be somebody that they would gravitate more toward, and versus like a stockier person or whatever.
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know if it's true either, because I'm not a man.
Now, I've been married but I've been married too long to have. Okay, I really have been married too long to know. Meaning, what I mean by that is that I don't look at other women. So I'm not looking at other women and deciding whether or not I want to date them or whatever.
That's good, because
it is. It is good. But the point is that the point that I'm making is that I can't speak for all men. What I can say is, and this is a judging thing from my perspective, is there are times that you see somebody, let's say a good looking man, and you see him with somebody who's perhaps not good looking or whatever, and you say, why are they together? And that's a judgment again. It's another judgment. Why would someone do that? And why do we qualify people based on those exterior things instead of saying, who is the person? What's going on? And try to. What is interesting? You asked me earlier about being attracted to certain personalities or whatever. I will say this: when you see a CEO on TV, whether it's a man or a woman, they're almost always good looking. Isn't that weird? You rarely see somebody.
You mean like in a show?
No, I mean even on news, in the news,
gotcha.
if you Google people and stuff, it's fascinating how many times
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, does that person get more
treated differently?
Right.
Yeah. Do they get treated differently simply because of the way they look?
right?
No, it is interesting. On the other hand, I do. Okay, I'm going to speak my mind, and this might be bad. What's the girl's name? There's a singer who's really heavy, and she says, "I just don't care. I am who I
Kelly
am."
Clarkson?
She's not heavy anymore.
Oh, well, because she went on that diet.
Yeah, I think she takes drugs. She took. No, seriously, she takes the drugs. She's starting
It's
to
the
take
apple
that.
cider vinegar thing. Or are you talking about the other thing?
The
thing that diabetics take.
Do you know what it is?
Diabetics take it.
No idea.
That they have. Yes, the diabetic one.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Patty, that's who it was. Who was it? Lizzo.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
Oh, she's a singer, a very talented singer, and a very talented artist. Not just singer. She's a talented artist because does she play instruments, Iggy? You know music. Iggy, this is your
You're
point,
a
Iggy.
musician,
You're a
my
musician.
friend.
You're supposed to know all of this stuff. The point, though, is that she's very, very talented, and she basically says, "This is who I am," and she's heavy. There's no other way around it, and she's saying, "I accept myself. I accept who I am, and this is who I am." And you just need to, and I don't care if you accept me or not. This is who I am. And she's incredibly successful. Now, apparently not among us. But what is interesting about that is I do want people to feel accepted exactly how they are. And then at the same time, I also want to say, but if this isn't the healthiest way that you can live, I want people to live the healthiest way,
Right.
in terms of wholehearted living. I don't know
Right.
if this makes sense.
No, it does. It 100% does. And I agree with you 100%. I feel like if people are just accepted the way they are and were confident in their bodies, they would emulate that. And I think that people would see that. And like going back to our book and the perfectionism,
Yeah.
I feel like when I look at people specifically at the gym and you see the people that look really super fit, they are definitely fit. And then you see the heavier set person and you're looking at them and thinking, well, good for them for being there. My whole point in bringing this whole thing up is because I think when we judge other people for how they look, we don't know their backstory. We don't know what's going on in their lives. We don't know what they are actually doing in their lives. But it's on us if we judge them. It's
Right.
not on them.
That's right.
We are bad. We are the bad. It doesn't matter. Like you just said, she's happy. She says, accept me the way I am. I'm successful. I'm happy. And this is who I am. If her health markers are in check, then fine. Right.
Yes, exactly.
It's great. We shouldn't judge on that at all.
Yeah.
It's bad on us if we do that.
I think the hardest issue is the discussion, when you brought it up and when you brought it up to me, I think the thing for me is I think we automatically do that. We automatically look at people. And I remember a long time ago, I read this. I can't remember what it was. All I know is that they said the first thing that our eye is attracted to is not the face, not the eyes, but the general body, like the general physique. I'm talking about milliseconds. It's like the first thing we do is we look at the
Overall being.
who the person is. And I think our mind immediately makes judgments based on what we're seeing. And then we look at the other stuff, and then we consider, and then personality, sadly, is the very last thing because that's sometimes we don't even know the personality
Right.
depending on what we saw. What's
Right.
that?
The personality is the most important.
You're right,
It
and the
is.
personality is the thing you really fall
And
in
that's
love
what's
with.
a shame is I think when people judge and don't get to know somebody because of like the wall, if you
Right,
will,
right.
they don't get to know the genuine person. And, I can't even tell you how many times there has been some, because I'm not a friendly person. I know I've discussed this many, many times.
You are hateful.
I am very,
Just kidding.
I'm a nice person. I'm not a very friendly person. I have a very hard time striking up conversations with anyone. I'm very to myself, and there have been many times that I've missed out on relationships because I just don't strike up a conversation.
Oh, right.
And then time goes by, and then you get to know that person because whether it's in a work atmosphere or whatever it is, or the gym, whatever, and you're just like, oh my God, this is one of the nicest people I've ever
So
met.
curious, I'm curious, based on our conversation, are you, maybe it's not true, but are you saying that's sometimes based on the way you perceive the person when you first look at them? Or are you saying that that's just because it's your personality?
I mean, in all honesty, it really is my personality. It's not because, oh no, I won't talk to them because they look like that, because I do that with I don't have that. And Peter laughs at me because he's like, you know, he always is like, oh, so-and-so's over there. And even if I know the person, I'm like, oh, let's go this way. Like, I don't want to, I'm just like, I'm very, very not, I'm not.
It's no wonder that we
tried.
we had Easter and then she's walking on the other side of the room. There's Benny. Okay. She avoided me.
I am honestly that person that doesn't approach people. But I will tell you, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, no, but 3, 4 years, I have tried.
Not 5.
No, because I'm like thinking, how long has it been really? No, I guess it's been almost 5 years. I really tried.
5 years?
Yeah, because it was before the pandemic.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Well, I'm
have
glad we
tried-
got that clarified.
I'm just saying, like, I have tried to step out of my comfort zone and approach people and said hello. Or I think we talked about this one other podcast where I was like saying, oh, I love her shoes. And she walks by and I don't say I love her shoes. And
right.
I will finally, now I can say, oh my gosh, I love your shoes, you know, and
Right.
that I really am trying to step out of that. And it's become more natural to me. But
And do you like it?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And I can connect with people. But there is that little bit of a judgment in me when there is.
So you know what's interesting? I'm sorry, I cut you off. Finish.
No,
your
it's
thought.
okay. I understand.
Well, one thing that I find interesting that in talking with people in life coaching and therapy is one thing that's very interesting to me, and I've done this with some clients actually, is people who have issues with their own body. Or the way they perceive themselves, even if their body is good, and then they're saying, so then they judge the other person.
Right,
you know what I
right,
mean?
right,
Like,
right.
well, if I can do it, then you can do it. And so why aren't you? And so what's interesting to me is sometimes what I do with certain clients is I'll ask them, hey, when you see a person who looks like you, how do you treat them? And I ask them, like, in other words, I want to get in their mind, because what's interesting is if you're having a hard time accepting yourself, you're likely to have a hard time, because we see the negative things in other people when we feel those negative things about ourselves. Okay, so did I just say that wrong?
No, you might have said it wrong. You might have said it right, but I feel like it's opposite, because I feel like when I have something negative about myself, you know, for example, I have stretch marks on my stomach, but if I see a girl in the gym with like, I can see her abs because she's wearing like a little crop top or whatever you want to say. I'm envious of that.
Yeah.
I don't judge it. I'm like more
But
envious of it.
But my point is that you're finding, what you're hoping you don't or do have, and then you're able to see it in the other person immediately. And that's my point is like, when I'm working with a client who might feel like they're heavy, it's interesting because then my question to them is, well, how do you treat people who are heavy who come to you? And it's like, well, no, I accept them and I don't have any issue and da-da-da-da. And then I'm like, well, that's interesting, because if you can do that with them, then how can, and then what it comes down to often, not always, but often, is they actually don't like seeing that other person. They in their mind are saying, I'm okay with you being heavy, but in their hearts are saying, what's wrong with you? Like what's going on with you? Does that, am I making sense? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean,
at
I hear
all?
what you're saying, but I hear what you're saying, but then I also have another opinion on that, because I have also, I think we've talked about this before, because like I just said something about my stretch marks. When I see other people with stretch marks, I'm like, oh my gosh, good for them that they're okay, that their stretch
they're
marks
showing
are
it.
showing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I envy that quality in them, that they're like, this is who I am. This is my body.
But that's
and
a
this
little
is what
bit
it
different,
is.
because stretch marks, is there really anything you can do about stretch marks other than surgery?
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, but even then
But that's a little bit different than perhaps what people perceive as
something that you can't, like something you can do
that
something
you
about
might
that.
think
but
yeah, exactly. So you think you can do something about some things. And so my point is that my point is that it's easy to identify the weaknesses in other people when we have those weaknesses. So it's that classic thing of when you're pointing the finger at somebody else, 3 fingers are pointing back at you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
Well, I just said something about this the other day about looking in the mirror instead of looking in a magnifying glass. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times we're so quick to look at what everything else is going wrong in front of us versus turning around and pointing it back at yourself and just going, well, wait a minute, wait. Let me reflect. Let me see. And that's this whole thing with judging and this body shaming and stuff like that, because I look at it like if you're one to body shame somebody else, like it's really not saying a lot about the other person. It's saying a lot about yourself.
That's right.
And so you're definitely putting that magnifying glass on that one person where you really should be putting the mirror in your face and going, what is wrong with me that I have to body shame them?
Right. Well, there is a practical aspect, like in the case of your situation where you said there's a coach. I will say, I mean, even with us having this podcast, I'm unlikely to follow a coach who doesn't have at least the kind of body that I want, which I don't want a ripped body. Well, I would love to have a ripped body, but I know.
I'm glad you don't want one because no, just kidding.
I know exactly, but because I know what it takes to get a ripped body, and that's 6 hours of working out every single day, and eating ridiculous and whatever. And so that's not going to happen. But I do want a healthy body. And I'm going to tell you, if I saw somebody who was obese, who was a coach, I'm probably not going to go, yeah, I want that.
Yeah.
I'm going to, tell me what to do. Likewise, I'm unlikely to pursue somebody who has had 7 divorces for marriage counseling.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just not going to do that. So, but it doesn't deny the fact of what you started this whole podcast with, which is, how do we perceive people in our first perception? Should we be perceiving them and making judgments immediately about who they are and their behavior and what makes them tick and all those kind of things?
And not knowing anything about
anything about their backstory and going, okay, there's something wrong. I mean, I honestly, I hate saying this, but I mean, I'm uncomfortable around certain kids. Just because I'm not familiar with kids. I know that it has nothing to do with the kids. It has to do with me. I'm uncomfortable around people with certain disabilities because I just don't know what to do. Even though I know they have a disability, even though it's obvious that they have some condition, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I'm uncomfortable. And so I make judgments about how they might respond to me. And then I'm envious of the people who are able to just embrace them and just do things with them.
Yeah.
I confess that's not my forte. Am I making sense?
Oh, 100%.
You constantly talk about your students that you have to work with special needs. And I'm telling you, in some cases, I'm like, I don't know that I could do that. I really don't know what would happen.
You know what has helped me in that area is Jeffrey, Peter's nephew, my nephew. Because you know what? I understand that because I was definitely uncomfortable and you just don't know. Like, you know, you just don't know. If you've never really interacted with somebody with a special need or some kind of disability. Jeffrey is our nephew who was hit by a car at 3 years old. And in all honesty, they didn't expect him to live overnight. And so he did. I think his clinical diagnosis is cerebral palsy. I'm not. I'm.
How old is he now?
But he's, now in his 30s. I mean, he's a man, you know. But I mean, you know what? This guy has taught me so much. And honestly, when I first met him, he was a little boy, and I did not know how to react to him. But after time and again, and then everybody would say, okay, you have to talk like this to him. You just be real, and I was just like, and he's just a regular guy, kid. And it's just, but he taught me a lot. He taught me so much. And then I got into launch preschool and working with a lot of like special needs students. And so it is, you get more comfortable when you're around them. But if you're not around a lot of these type of people, it is uncomfortable because you don't know,
Yeah. Well, and going full circle to your beginning of this conversation is the way at times I just don't know. You can make a certain judgment about somebody. See, like when you say you can just treat him like a normal person, I don't. I mean, not that obviously he's not a normal person. So, but that doesn't mean we have to talk to him, talk down to them, or talk silly to them,
exactly,
or whatever. And I know for me, I just I don't know. Let's get off of that subject. I know that there are times when I look at a person and immediately make a judgment about who they are and what. And I know that it's wrong, so I consciously am telling myself, no, don't do this. It's the same thing about, and this has nothing to do with race. It has to do with whether or not the person in the hour of the day, because I walk at 5 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning, and so it's very dark normally, and I'm walking outside and somebody's walking by me. I don't care what race they are. I'm always wondering, is this a safe? Am I going to pass
100%.
them, and am I going to be safe?
100%.
And there are times when it's like, oh, should I walk on the other? Should I move? Should I do this? What should I do? And then I'm like, and it's a weird conversation that I'm having in my head, because you're saying, okay, by moving, am I judging them? Am I judging them?
Wow.
And then by not moving, am I dead?
Right.
So, or robbed or whatever. Yeah. And so it's like, what, and then I'm thinking, and then sometimes the way they walk by me being a Latino with all my stuff on there, I'm thinking,
let me go to the other side of the street.
I'm going to go to the other side of the street. But the weird thing.
No, but you have that instant judge thing. And I'm going to go back to my days in like high school, where many people, and in fact, Peter even thought this of me, that I was a very stuck up person. And they thought that I was very, very stuck up. And then he goes, and you're not at all that person.
Yeah, but you were.
But
I know you weren't.
But going back, I'm just not. First of all, I'm a very, very I am definitely a
introvert, like quiet.
I'm so much an introvert. It's not even funny. And I'm also not a friendly person. And that, again, doesn't mean I'm not
I don't like
nice.
when you say you're not
because
friendly.
I'm not friendly. I'm not outgoing.
You're not outgoing. That's not the same thing as unfriendly.
I look at the word friendly and nice as two different things. I'm a very, very nice person. But I'm not like outwardly nice. Like I'm not.
Yeah, but that doesn't make you unfriendly.
I have to look up the word friendly, because
if somebody says to you, hi, you go hi back.
I will, for sure.
Yeah, well, an unfriendly person says, bite me. So I don't see you as unfriendly. What you're really saying is you're not outgoing.
I'm not. And so a lot of people looked at me as if like I was stuck up.
Right.
Like she just thinks she's too good for us. No, I'm just not outgoing.
Right.
There you go.
Well, I think you and I both have a personality because we're so talkative, which I'm even more talkative than you. If I'm quiet, people think that something's wrong. Yeah. It's like they come up and they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm enjoying myself. And they're like, oh, okay. But you're not yourself. And I'm like, this is myself. But when I'm not in the mode that people think I should be,
right.
This has nothing to do with this podcast.
No, but somebody just said this to me just the other day at work. She said we were celebrating somebody's birthday in the lunchroom, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was obviously outside of my like professional person. And she goes, "Oh, I've never seen this side of you." And I was like, no, because I am not like walking around like that person. You know what I mean? Like when I usually walk around, do my job, I'm a very hi, how are you kind of person to the people I know on the school ground. But then she was just like, oh, that's not, I don't know that person, you know?
Who's that person? Yeah, right.
Because I definitely have, and I want to, this sounds so weird that you have like these two personas, but I could be, and you know this, very fun, outgoing, life of the party, laughter, loud. But then if I do sit back because I need to retreat, because I've just had enough of it, because I am an introvert, people will think there's something wrong with me, or I'm judging everybody else right now. No, I'm not. I'm actually just retreating, and I'm loving watching all this. I just don't want to partake.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have to turn back to the topic since we're about done. But I guess, I don't know do we have any particular thing that we're trying to tell people?
Yeah, the particular thing is don't judge people.
Yeah, stop it.
Seriously.
You guys suck. Just kidding. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, honest, in just listening to this person's story, I really, really, it hit me because I think we don't know what's going on. I think I told you guys this before, that I ordered coffee from someone. I think it was at Starbucks. And I may have said this in the podcast. I can't remember, but it was very sad because this person was definitely not having a good day. And you could tell. She was the barista, or the person taking the order, actually. I don't know. And I was just being very nice to her because I could kind of tell like she was disheveled and whatever, you know. And then she did the drink wrong, or she put the drink in wrong. And then I said, "Oh, I didn't want this. Can you whatever." And then I said something like, I don't remember exactly what I said to her, but like, I hope you have a really good day. I'm sorry if I, would mess up your rhythm or whatever I said to her. It's been a couple years. And she just started crying. And she said like her grandma had died that morning. She wanted to call in sick, but nobody could take her shift. So she had to go in. And she was having a bad morning, and people were really upset with her. And, and it was just like, so you just don't know what's going on in somebody else's. And I was glad that I wasn't like mean to her. I'm glad I said something to her versus other people that sounded like they said something mean to her.
See, that's friendly. Whether you know it. See, so I think that's friendly.
Friendly.
Yeah, you are.
Okay.